Hello. Today I will be demonstrating the answers to chapters 3 and 4 in our textbook Is Everybody Really Equal via a Bob Ross painting tutorial. I've already started because this is my third take, so we're going to try it again. So please allow me some creative leeway. I've never done a Bob Ross painting tutorial before, and I'm very excited to try. So when we think of the key careers in the world, they tend to be organized by gender. So the careers that require more physical strength and endurance, such as a firefighter or a teacher, tend to be, or excuse me, not a teacher, a firefighter or something of that sort. They tend to be more male-centered careers and more male-dominant careers, whereas careers such as a teacher or a nurse tend to be more female-dominated careers, as they require more empathy or emotional understanding, emotional capability, etc., etc. And I believe the authors of our book would likely explain this pattern through a lens of socialization. The world socializes people from a very young age to fit a certain gender criteria from a very, very young age. The first question that expecting parents are asked is if it's a girl or a boy. And from that very moment that they find out the gender or the sex of their baby, their child is already having expectations and plans and life goals planned out for them, and they're not even born yet. So I believe, and I believe the authors would agree, that this pattern is a result of socialization and gender norms and expectations. However, if we take Bob Ross and his son Steve Ross is actually the one doing the tutorial this time, by the way. If we take them as primary examples, both of them are painters, and painting is not typically a male-dominant career, as it requires more emotional depth, understanding, capability, whereas a career like a firefighter obviously requires more physical strength and endurance. And so both of these men are terrific painters, and were also painting instructors, which are both careers that are typically, I would imagine, women-dominated or female-dominated, as they require... Sorry, I thought I had another brush with me. As they require more emotional capability and empathy to succeed in. And I found that very interesting. And also during the video, Steve encourages anybody who wants to work with people to become a teacher. Given the time and, I suppose, the setting of this comment would be taken, I feel, differently nowadays than it would be during the time that Steve said it, which is in the 90s. Although I'm not sure that time would have a huge impact on changing that. Many teachers are, or male teachers face prejudice and discrimination for being male, as they are often accused or questioned in their reasons as to why they chose that career path. They may be seen as predators, they may be seen as having devious or skewed reasoning as to becoming a teacher. However, that is also typically for elementary kids, elementary teachers, and not really painting teachers. I'm sure teaching adults how to paint is not a very dubious career path or choice, and cannot be speculated that much. However, I wouldn't know. Questioned. On to the second and third questions, which I chose to answer in more or less the same points. The the forces of socialization and why so many people feel immune to it, and also the concept of socialization and how that challenges the idea of individualism. So for me, one of the things I noticed about Steve Ross as a painter is that he very much so follows in his father's footsteps. And by that I mean he started on his show at a very young age. He pursued art from a very young age, after his father had already become the successful artist that he was. So in my eyes, this is in fact socialization, as Steve was brought up in a way that could only really lead him to being a painter, and it is highly likely that most of his unique qualities that he possesses as a human being were possibly overlooked in his youth, as he was only ever going to be seen as the son of Bob Ross, the famous painter. I have a hypothetical for you, or a scenario, a scenario. If Bob Ross and his wife found out that they were having a boy during their pregnancy, the expectations for this son begin at a very young age. They might possibly start to think, oh, he's going to follow in his father's footsteps, be a very good, talented, skilled painter like his father. Possibly something like that. And then Steve is born, and immediately the expectations his parents have for him begin to influence his character and his development. He may be witness to several painting tutorials live in front of him. He may be encouraged to follow along with his father while he paints. He may be discouraged from trying other activities, and when he does, he may be faced with prejudice at home, being told, why aren't you painting? Why do you want to do soccer? Why do you want to take on music? Why do you want to do this, this, and this when you could paint like your father? All this could possibly lead to Steve wanting to try new things, being a little bit, so to speak, rebellious against his parents in wanting to not paint, not follow his father, because he wants to be unique in his passions and in his own life, which is fair. I mean, all teenagers have their rebellious phase as well, which could very well be what his parents nail his lack of desire to paint down to. He tries painting, Steve, and finds that he's quite good at it. He thinks back to his father's lessons and that he was exposed to at a very young age, and he's featured in his first Bob Ross painting video, which I believe is the tutorial that I'm following today. Not very well, apparently, it would seem. Here's how it's going. And he continues with his painting because people enjoy seeing him featured in videos so much, and eventually he decides to pursue painting as his career path, as all his other passion for music has been long forgotten in exchange for painting, like his father. Fame and wealth are in his future due to his choice of career path, and thus socialization is rewarded. Socialization has unseen, typically, benefits for people who choose to conform and to socialize. And there are often, well, most of the time, negative drawbacks to not conforming and not socializing. So if Steve had in fact decided to pursue music, maybe his family would have been upset with him. Maybe the world would have been upset with him after having seen him on so many painting tutorial episodes with his father. There's not really any telling what the world would have done in that situation. I don't know if a lot of people actually would have cared, but it is just a hypothetical situation. Another thing I wanted to mention about socialization is the concept of what is good art and what is bad art. So right now I would call this bad art. However, to somebody who has never seen art before, it might seem really good. And also the entire social structure of me believing or that backs up me believing this not being good art is socialization. The art that we are exposed to on a daily basis, perhaps in public settings, parks, in the lobbies, in different buildings, in SkyTrain stations, art like that. You see it and you see no mistakes. Typically it is now digital art nowadays, or like big sculptures that can't really have mistakes because it's like structurally connected. But to the world, that is good art because it is featured in places, it was paid for, it was commissioned, somebody wanted it, and now somebody gets to look at it and enjoy it. And then artists who want to try doing art are then faced with the struggle of doing their art and realizing, oh, well, mine doesn't look like the paintings that I see in the SkyTrain station. Mine doesn't look like that sculpture. Sorry, I couldn't open my paint. That sculpture that I saw in the lobby of my